This video I'm going to demonstrate how to make a simple JFrame app that will work as a template for your first project in 1130, the poem project. So let's dive in. As a quick review, when you want to create a project folder in VS Code, you go to Open Folder, you browse for a place that you want to store it. I'm going to put mine on desktop in my 1130s projects folder, and I'm going to make a new folder called Charlie underscore poem, as is the convention for naming in my class. I'll click select folder because that's the one I want to use for my project folder. There we go. Okay, so we've got our folder here, my Charlie poem folder, and I need to create a new Java file. So I hover over the folder in the Explorer here, Charlie Poem folder, and you can see it brings up that little context menu, and it allows me to click on the New File button. I'll click on that, and I'm just going to call it Poem with a capital P dot Java. You have to make sure you add the .java there, or it's not a Java file. Hit enter, and it automatically creates the file for you. Now I'm going to create my class header. This is a Java file. It'll eventually get compiled and turned into a Java class file or Java bytecode, and that will get interpreted by the Java runtime environment and translated into machine code, and the machine will get instructions and, run the file. So let's get our class header. Public class poem extends JFrame. And I get my curly braces. That is my class definition here. You can see that JFrame is underlined red. That means I've got an error. Anytime you see this error that says JFrame cannot be resolved to a type or something cannot be resolved to a type, either it is something that does not exist or it just has not been imported. So when you're working with JFrame stuff, you're going to get to see this pop up a lot, like when you make a new JLabel or you make a JText area or something like that. If it ever says that thing cannot be resolved to a type, it means that you haven't imported it. To fix that problem, we'll make an import statement. It is import javax dot swing dot star. The star will just import everything from Swing, and that means anytime you want to use any of the Swing components like JButton, JTextField, JTextArea, JLabel, all the things that start with J, all those J components, those will all be imported with that star. Otherwise, you could do them all individually, like this, but then I'm going to have a lot of import statements. So I'm just going to avoid that. For a small project like this, there's no harm in importing everything from Swing. Even if we're not going to use everything, it just makes your life a little bit easier. Okay, in our class definition, the first thing we're going to have is we're going to have our main method. Okay, PSVM, there's our main method. And in our main method, we're going to do all of the setup stuff that we would do to properly launch a JFrame. So first thing we have to do is make an object for our frame. Poem frame gets new poem. I've said before that I'm not going to explain this in detail quite yet. Over the next few weeks, we'll start looking at objects in more depth, and I'll explain this whole concept of class and object and constructing or instantiating objects. But just for now, know this is something that we have to do in order to interact with things that are outside of the main. And we'll interact with them through this frame variable. All right, next, frame dot set size, and I'm going to set the height and width. And we can make it whatever height and width we want. What you probably want to do for your poem project is download an image first and see how big that image is, and then set the height and width of the frame to the size of the image. But I'm just going to go 400 wide by 600 high. All right, that's going to set the size of the frame. Frame dot set default close operation, exit on close. This statement, as I described in our first lecture, has to do with when you launch a frame, if you just press the X button in the corner of the frame, it'll close the frame, but the process will still be running on your computer. This makes sure that that process gets terminated, so you don't have it running on your program without the frame running. So you've got to have this in every JFrame project that you create. Next, frame dot set visible, and then true goes in there. That means that when the program runs for the first time, or when the program runs, I should say, it will make the frame visible. I'm going to run this, and we'll see the frame pop up. Sure enough, it was visible. I'm going to comment this out so it's not actively running. So anytime you use these comments, this gets ignored by the compiler. You can use comments in front of lines of code that you don't want to execute. So in this case, it's not going to execute set visible. I'll run it. And it's running, but we just can't see it. It's not visible. So that's what the set visible true does. All right. Next thing that we need is going to be our paint method. Public void paint. And it is in here, you get graphics G as our parameter. And you can see graphics is underlined. That means it has not been imported. It says graphics cannot be resolved to a type. So I have to make sure I import it. Graphics is from a library called AWT. And AWT handles all of the drawing stuff. So it handles our graphics context and it handles all of the drawing stuff. So import java dot AWT dot star. And that gives us everything from AWT. So all of our drawing of all types. Okay? So this is your basic template that you are going to use for every project in this class. All the stuff that you want to draw is going to go inside of the paint method. So if I wanted to draw a string, g dot draw string, I could provide my string literal here, and then give it a position. So it's going to be 100 pixels horizontally and 100 pixels vertically. So that's your X and your Y. And if I run this, you'll see that that string will be drawn to the graphics context. I'm having a little bit of rendering issue here. This is not a Java problem. This is an interesting quirk that just happened with this particular run. I don't know why it's doing that. That's weird. I know. I'm glad I made this mistake. At the top of the paint method, we have to do this. Super.paint and pass G into it, because you can sometimes get weird errors if you don't make this call to super. There we go. Thanks for making that mistake, me, because that was beneficial for you all. You might find throughout this course, I'm going to make mistakes, and it's going to happen somewhat frequently, and there are going to be types of mistakes that I make because I'm absent-minded. And I sort of code on autopilot. And I make these mistakes because they're very easy mistakes to make, and they are common. These are the kinds of mistakes that you'll make as well. So always remember, at the top of your paint method, add this super.paint. Again, this is another one of those things that you just have to accept that you need to do it without an explanation for now. Later on, when we get deeper into this class, I'm going to explain why we do this super.paint and what super means. It's a really important thing as we move deeper into object-oriented programming. But anyways, this is the basic template for all of the different types of programs that you're going to make in this class. So how can we work with this? Well, on the poem project, you're going to have an image that will get drawn to the frame, and you'll have to have text over it. I'm not going to do all the code for making an image on this video because there are other videos that will handle that thing. And there are other files that we've worked on in class that handle that thing. So you can take little bits and pieces from those other videos and cobble them together into one whole project. But I hope this gets you off on the right foot and gets you started on your project. Thanks for watching.